Why I think Halle Bailey playing the role of the Little Mermaid shouldn't make that big of a deal when it comes to race. Now, I've got 3 points when it comes to characters in Hollywood productions, or any production. Are they historical characters in a certain geographical location at a certain time on Earth? It may be kind of specific, but hear me out. For example, Frederick Douglass in 1890 in New York, or William Shakespeare in 1599 in London. 2. Is the story logical as opposed to a fantasy type story? Like, are there superheroes, fairy folk, stuff like that? 3. Is the character's race important to the story? And I feel like this one is the most important. If at least 2 of these questions are answered yes, then the character's race should be considered in writing and casting. I feel like this list is decently objective and isn't really clouded by emotion or feelings, but if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. Now, I don't want to talk about this, but I feel like I have to. America has largely and systematically excluded characters of color and stories of characters of color from Hollywood for the past 100 or more years. And this is excluding being the bad guy or being objects of ridicule. And unfortunately, this does play a factor in our decision making today. Like, we have this history and this thought of being excluded from these stories for so long. So especially when there's an opportunity to cast a person of color, especially when they'd be great in that role, especially when those 3 questions aren't answered with a yes, the question is, why not? There have been characters from all over the world, Africa, Asia, North America, South America, even Australia, who have been portrayed by white characters. These characters and situations were largely historical: Jesus, Moses, Native Americans, Egyptian pharaohs, things like that. And these situations cover the first 2 points: historical characters in geographic locations on Earth, and them being logical stories. Besides the miracles, for argument's sake, but we can get into that into another video. Yeah, skip over that one. Now, let's talk about Ariel. She's a fictional character, obviously. Her original story is from the Danish writer Hans Christian Andersen, and is set in Denmark, published in 1837, so that is something to consider. However, she's a mermaid. She's a fantasy character. Her species doesn't exist. Finally, because she's a mermaid, the human concept of race shouldn't really apply to them. You could just portray her with a lighter skinned or darker skinned actress. She would just be a lighter skinned or darker skinned mermaid. What about Black Panther? I've seen different people talking about that, or bringing up the character of Black Panther in other discussions about race switching established characters. Now, Black Panther isn't a historical character, and the nation of Wakanda isn't a real place. However, the story is meant to be taking place in a timeline similar to ours, where Black people were enslaved and sold to white colonizers to be taken across the ocean in the transatlantic slave trade. So that's the stories of our current universe, our current Earth, are meant to be very close to the MCU's Earth 616 universe. It's obviously a fantasy story. It's got superheroes in the story. So, however, as I mentioned before, the Black Panther's race is important to the story. He and his nation of Black people have historically hidden themselves from the world and from white colonizers in particular for centuries. It would make no sense in a world where Africa is still Africa, being mainly inhabited by Africans, to be a country of Asians, right? It'd be very, very illogical. One more character, Jon Stewart. Where's my Green Lantern ring? It's over here somewhere. Oh, there it is. In brightest day, in darkest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Anyway, yeah. Jon Stewart is an African-American man who took up the role of Green Lantern in DC Comics. Now, I'm not super familiar with Green Lantern as a character, but I did some Wikipedia-ing. He's a character in the United States, mostly in modern times, so if we just kind of picked a race of people that live in America, you know, whatever. It is a fantasy story with superheroes. So, and finally, I don't see a lot of stories relevant to his race. There might be. I might be wrong. That's perfectly that I understand. If that is the case, please let me know in the comments. So, in theory, he could be portrayed by a white actor. Maybe he shouldn't, because we've already got Hal Jordan, who's a white person, who took up the role of the Green Lantern. and we already don't have a lot of representation of black superheroes besides people with lightning powers. So, it wouldn't be like so far out of the wheelhouse to portray Jon Stewart as a white man, right? I don't think. Now I wanted to add a point. I was looking and thinking about white characters whose race is important to the story, who are also objectively good guys, and I couldn't really find very much. I don't know what that says about whiteness, but anyway. Okay, pause. Before you start going and shouting reverse racism, listen to what I said. I never said that white people can't be the good guy. Here's what I said. I've never seen a situation where a white character is white because of the story. Be the good guy. If I'm wrong, please let me know. I'm okay with being corrected. As a matter of fact, I'll upload a corrected video, a video without this particular line, and I'll cite that movie or TV show or whatever where the white character is white for the story and they were the hero. Especially if it's a historical story. Now, should there be more stories of people just being people where any race could apply? Yes, absolutely. Should there be more black stories in Hollywood? Yes, also true. But I feel like both of these things can be true. Both being careful about who we cast in certain roles and there being more stories to tell. They can both be true. They're not mutually exclusive. Now, to make a long video short, I'm just going to go back over the 3 points I made earlier. Are the characters historical in a certain geographic location on Earth, or on an Earth where the situations in real life are similar to the situations in that story? Is it a logical story as opposed to a fantasy story? And is the character's race important to the story? I feel like if at least 2 of those questions are answered with a yes, then we should consider the character's race in writing and casting. What do you think about those 3 points? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have another point that you'd like to add, or do you want to pull something out? This is just my opinion. I'm just a guy on the internet. But if you think something different, let me know in the comments. Reply to the video. You know what I'm saying? Do what you do. It's a free country. It's a free internet. Maybe not a free country. Depends on where you live. Anyway.